Be here at 2 p.m. to set up. Wear the staff uniform, that's what my sister's wedding invitation said. She thought I'd stay quiet like a servant. Until I took the mic and said this. The whole room went silent. Hello. My name is Evelyn Montgomery. The unwanted daughter. The family embarrassment. The invisible one. I am the older sister of the bride. The one who should have been helping her pick out her dress, standing beside her at the altar, giving the emotional toast about childhood memories and sisterly love. Instead, I was invited as staff. Please arrive at 2 p.m. for setup. Wear the provided uniform. That's what my invitation said. Not as a guest. Not as family. As a server. The realization should have crushed me. It should have reminded me of every moment I spent trying to prove to my family that I was worthy of them. Instead, I smiled. Because what Olivia, my perfect, beloved, golden child of a sister, didn't know was that the entire wedding she was about to celebrate. I paid for it. And they had no idea. The Montgomery family, a study in perfection. The Montgomerys were the kind of family people envied. At least, from the outside. We had money. We had influence. And we had Olivia, the perfect daughter. She had always been the center of attention, the homecoming queen, the straight-A student, the one who never disappointed. Then there was me, Evelyn, the firstborn, the mistake. I wasn't supposed to be the failure. I had started off strong, top of my class, scholarships, big dreams. But the moment I deviated from their expectations, I became nothing to them. I didn't become a lawyer like my father wanted. I didn't marry a successful businessman like my mother planned. I didn't exist the way they needed me to. So they erased me. By the time Olivia turned 18, I was no longer Evelyn, the firstborn Montgomery. I was just Evelyn, a footnote in their lives, a minor inconvenience. When I told them I was starting my own business instead of joining my father's firm, they laughed. When I said I wouldn't be coming home for Christmas because I had work, they didn't even notice. When I bought my own penthouse in the city, they assumed I was renting a shoebox apartment, struggling to make ends meet. They never asked, because to them, I was already gone. And I let them believe it. The invitation. The ivory envelope arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, hand-delivered by a courier. That was so Olivia, dramatic, extra, needing every moment of her life to feel like a royal event. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity won. I ran my fingers over the thick cardstock, the gold-foiled lettering gleaming under my kitchen lights. You are cordially invited to the wedding of Olivia Montgomery and Daniel Wright. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Olivia was getting married. To Daniel. I knew Daniel. Not personally, but in the way you know someone through endless family gossip. He was perfect, according to my mother. He was from old money, according to my father. And he was everything Olivia deserved, according to Olivia herself. I barely skimmed the rest of the details, date, time, location, until I saw the fine print at the bottom. Staff are expected to arrive by 2 p.m. for preparation. Please wear the provided uniform. The words staff and uniform sent a slow-burning heat through my chest. I reread the sentence 3 times, as if it would change. But no, my parents and my sister hadn't invited me as a guest. They had invited me as help. I wasn't sure whether to laugh or feel sick. I was their eldest daughter. Their blood. And they had hired me. Like I was some outsider. Like I was a nobody. For a moment, the old pain threatened to creep back in. The familiar ache of rejection, the sting of not being enough. Then I remembered something they didn't know. I had paid for this wedding. Every extravagant flower arrangement, every imported bottle of champagne, every crystal chandelier hanging over their heads as they danced beneath the stars, it was all mine. My parents didn't have money anymore. My father's bad investments had drained their accounts, and my mother's socialite lifestyle had left them drowning in debt. But their pride would never let them admit that. So when Olivia wanted her fairy tale wedding, they found a mysterious benefactor willing to fund it all. That benefactor was me. And they didn't even know it. The plan. I wasn't just going to attend this wedding. I was going to watch them choke on their own arrogance. They thought they were humiliating me? Oh, they had no idea what humiliation felt like. I picked up my phone and called my assistant, Madison. I need a favor, I said, my voice calm. Call the wedding coordinator. Tell them the anonymous benefactor wants a few changes made to the event. Got it, Madison said. What kind of changes? I smiled, staring at the invitation one last time before tossing it onto my kitchen counter. Nothing too drastic, I said. Just a few surprises. The day of the wedding was bright and perfect, just like Olivia wanted. The sun bathed the estate in golden light, the air carried the scent of imported roses, and the grand ballroom sparkled with wealth and status. And yet, the real show hadn't even started. I arrived at 2 p.m. sharp, just as instructed, dressed as required, in the server's uniform they had so graciously assigned me. Black slacks, crisp white shirt, a cheap apron that screamed you don't belong here. Pathetic. The wedding planner, a nervous woman named Patricia, rushed toward me as soon as I stepped inside. Oh, thank God you're here. The staff is already behind schedule, and Olivia has been, she paused, glancing at me properly for the first time. Oh, wait. You're... She knew who I was. Of course she did. The Montgomery name still carried weight, even if my family had tried to erase me. I gave her a polite, practiced smile. Yes, I'm Evelyn, Olivia's sister. I gestured at my uniform. And apparently, I'm also part of the catering staff. Patricia's face twisted with discomfort. I didn't realize. It's fine, I interrupted, my voice smooth. I assume you got the memo from the anonymous benefactor? Her eyes widened. Yes, I cut in before she could say it. Which means you're going to follow my instructions now. She swallowed hard. Oh, of course. What do you need? I handed her a folded list. Make sure these changes are implemented immediately. She hesitated. Some of these are drastic. I leaned in slightly, lowering my voice just enough to make her nervous. You see, Patricia, your entire paycheck today is funded by me. So, if I were you, I'd get moving. She moved. The setup for disaster. The venue was breathtaking, I would give Olivia that. White orchids cascaded from the ceiling like a floral waterfall. Crystal chandeliers twinkled above an ocean of silk-draped tables. Everything about this wedding screamed money. And none of it had come from my parents. As I walked through the reception hall, I spotted Olivia herself, standing in the middle of the chaos like a queen surveying her kingdom. Her wedding dress was custom Vera Wang, hand-stitched lace hugging her figure like it had been sculpted onto her. A perfect dress for a perfect girl. She was surrounded by bridesmaids, each one hanging onto her every word. Then her gaze landed on me, and the smile immediately dropped from her lips. What are you wearing? Olivia demanded, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. I gestured at the uniform. The one you told me to wear. A flicker of confusion crossed her face, then satisfaction. Good, she said, flipping her perfect blonde hair over her shoulder. Just try not to embarrass the family, okay? We have important people here. I let her have that moment. Let her believe, for just a little longer, that she had won. The guests arrive. By 5 p.m., the guests started trickling in, the high society elite, the old money families, the kind of people my mother desperately wanted to impress. I weaved through the crowd, blending into the background like any other insignificant staff member, until I reached my parents. My mother, Victoria Montgomery, stood near the grand staircase in an elegant emerald gown, her hand delicately wrapped around a glass of champagne. My father, Charles Montgomery, stood beside her, speaking with a group of businessmen, faking confidence he no longer had. They didn't see me at first. Not until I handed my mother a glass of wine. She took it without looking, murmuring, "Thank you, dear." And then she froze. Her fingers tightened around the stem of the glass as she turned her head slowly, her face draining of color as her gaze locked onto mine. "Evelyn," she whispered. I smiled. "Oh, good. You do remember my name." My father turned next. His jaw clenched the second he saw me. "What are you doing?" he hissed under his breath. I gave him a casual shrug. "My job." "You invited me, remember?" My mother stiffened. "You know very well that's not what we..." I know exactly what you meant, I said, keeping my voice dangerously even. You meant to humiliate me. Her nostrils flared. Lower your voice. We have guests. I leaned in, letting my lips barely brush the rim of the wine glass in my hand. Yes, we do. Then I turned and walked away, leaving them fumbling for an explanation. The beginning of the end. The ceremony itself was beautiful. Painfully so. The vows, the tears, the endless declarations of love and forever and perfection. I stood on the sidelines, watching as my family celebrated without me, pretending I wasn't there. But that was fine, because my moment hadn't come yet. It was waiting, lurking, ticking down like a countdown to destruction. And the first explosion would happen during the toast. The reception hall was a masterpiece of luxury. Golden chandeliers bathed the room in a warm glow, casting shimmering reflections off the crystal glasses and porcelain dinnerware. A live orchestra played in the background, the soft melody weaving through the air like silk. It was perfect, elegant, timeless, and in just a few minutes, I was going to burn it all to the ground. The calm before the storm. As the guests settled into their seats, I moved effortlessly between the tables, my presence barely noticed. A server. A shadow. Perfect. I passed Olivia's bridesmaids' table, where they gossiped about designer dresses and summer trips to Europe. I passed my father's business associates, all congratulating him on such a grand event, blissfully unaware that his entire empire was a lie. I passed my mother, who sat next to Olivia, basking in the glow of the daughter she actually loved. She laughed, her diamond earrings catching the light, her fingers wrapped around an imported crystal flute of champagne. None of them had any idea what was about to happen. The wedding coordinator, Patricia, gave me a nervous glance from across the room. She knew something was coming, but not what. I gave her a small nod. It was time. The first strike. The sound of a spoon clinking against a champagne flute rang through the room, drawing the guests' attention. Olivia's new husband, Daniel, stood from his chair, flashing his million-dollar-old money smile. If I could have everyone's attention, he began, his voice smooth and practiced. I'd like to thank you all for being here today to celebrate this incredible moment in our lives. The room erupted into polite applause. Olivia beamed, glowing in the spotlight like she always had. And of course, Daniel continued, turning toward my parents. None of this would have been possible without Victoria and Charles Montgomery, who have given us the most spectacular wedding imaginable. More applause. My mother dabbed at fake tears with an embroidered napkin. My father nodded in acknowledgement, his pride radiating through the room. And lastly, Daniel said, lifting his glass, to my beautiful wife, Olivia. I almost laughed. The orchestra swelled, the guests toasted, and for a moment, it seemed like the perfect evening. Then my moment arrived. Patricia gave the signal. One of the event staff handed me a microphone. I stepped forward. Actually, I said, my voice carrying through the hall, slicing through the air like a blade, there's one more person we should be thanking tonight. The room fell silent. Olivia's head snapped toward me, her eyes narrowing. What are you doing? She hissed. I ignored her. I turned toward the crowd, letting them see me now. Not as a server, not as an outsider, but as someone who mattered. I smiled. I think it's time we acknowledge the real reason we're all here today. A murmur spread through the crowd. People exchanged confused glances. I turned toward my parents, my expression cool and unreadable. Victoria. Charles. I have to say, you've done a fantastic job tonight, I said, voice dripping with sarcasm. Truly. This wedding is everything Olivia could have dreamed of. The flowers, the music, the custom menu flown in from Paris, flawless. My mother's smile faltered. Evelyn, I don't know what you think you're. But, I continued, cutting her off, there's just one problem. I let the silence stretch. Then I dropped the bomb. You didn't pay for any of it. A ripple of shock spread through the room. My father stiffened. My mother's hand tightened around her champagne glass. Olivia froze, her perfectly sculpted face twisting in confusion. What? Someone whispered. I took a slow, deliberate step forward, locking eyes with my parents. That's right, I said, savoring every word. This entire wedding, the venue, the flowers, the five-star catering, was all paid for by me. Gasps rang through the crowd. A few people laughed, thinking it was a joke. It wasn't. The ruin of the Montgomerys. Olivia shot up from her chair, her face livid. That's a lie, she snapped. I pulled out my phone. Is it? I tapped the screen. The massive projector at the back of the room flickered to life. And then, the receipts appeared. Screenshots of the wire transfers, the email confirmations, the contracts with my signature on them. Let's see, I mused, scrolling through the files. Venue deposit $150,000. Catering $75,000. That exquisite flower arrangement you love so much, Olivia? Another $60,000. The color drained from my sister's face. Wait. Someone muttered in the crowd. So it's her wedding. People were whispering now, looking at my parents, looking at Olivia. Judging. My mother stood, desperate to regain control. This is ridiculous. Why would you? Oh, I don't know, I interrupted. Maybe because your entire financial empire is a lie? Boom. The whispers exploded into full-blown chaos. My father went pale. You don't know what you're talking about. Oh, don't I? I tilted my head. Because according to these bank statements, I tapped the screen, pulling up the next document. Montgomery Holdings has been bleeding money for the last 5 years. You're living off of loans and reputation. People were staring at him now. Business partners. Investors. His friends. That's not true, he muttered. I turned to my mother. Tell me, Mom, I said sweetly, how does it feel to know that the daughter you disowned just funded the last thing keeping your social status intact? She looked like she wanted to slap me. The final blow. And then, the real destruction began. My phone buzzed. I smiled. Right on time. I tapped the screen. Immediately, every vendor at the wedding received a notification. A notification that payment had been revoked. The catering staff began clearing the tables. The florists started removing their arrangements. The orchestra stopped playing. And one by one, the luxuries Olivia had been basking in began to disappear. The guests watched in horror as the dream wedding turned into a disaster. My sister's face contorted in panic. Evelyn, stop, she shrieked. You can't. Oh, but I can, I whispered. And then I leaned in, lowering my voice so only she could hear. You invited me as a server, Olivia. You treated me like I was nothing. But guess what? I straightened, stepping back. You're standing in a wedding I built. And now? I'm taking it back. I turned on my heel, walking away as the chaos behind me erupted. Let them realize the truth on their own. This was only the beginning. The chaos unfolded like a masterpiece. The guests were panicking, voices rising in confusion as the wedding they had been admiring just moments ago collapsed in real time. Servers walked out mid-service, clearing half-eaten plates off tables and packing up the untouched lobster tail on trays. The bartender locked up the premium champagne, leaving guests clutching empty glasses. The florist stripped the venue, yanking down Olivia's precious imported orchids, petals scattering across the pristine floor like the remnants of her shattered ego. And the music? Dead silence. The string quartet packed up their instruments and left the building without a word. This wasn't just a ruined wedding. This was a public execution of the Montgomery name. And I had orchestrated every single note. The Montgomerys crack. I strolled toward the exit, my heels clicking against the marble floors. Calm. Unbothered. Powerful. Behind me, my family fell apart. My father stormed after me first, his rage barely contained. Evelyn, he roared, grabbing my wrist. Fix this. No. I turned slowly, arching an eyebrow. Fix what? I asked, my voice cool as steel. His hands shook with fury. You just made a fool of this family. You think this is a game? I laughed in his face. That's rich, coming from the man who's been playing pretend millionaire for years. I leaned in, lowering my voice so only he could hear. Did your little investors enjoy the show, Dad? Because I bet they're all rethinking their partnerships right now. His face paled. His jaw clenched. And I knew I was right. The moment I exposed his financial ruin, every businessman in this room had started calculating their exit strategies. Montgomery Holdings wasn't just bleeding money anymore. It was dead. I yanked my wrist free and took a step back. "Consider this my final act of charity," I said smoothly. "Now everyone knows exactly who you are." I turned to leave. Then Olivia lost it. The breakdown of a princess. "How could you?" The shriek ripped through the air, and suddenly, my sister lunged at me. I barely had time to react before she grabbed my arm, her manicured nails digging into my skin. "How dare you?" Olivia screamed, her voice raw with hysteria. "You destroyed my wedding. You embarrassed me. You've always been a jealous little." I ripped my arm from her grip and took a slow, menacing step forward. "Jealous?" I whispered. She froze. "I paid for your perfect little fantasy," I said, voice calm but sharp enough to slice through her like a blade. "I built it for you. And the second you thought you could step on me, you made one mistake." I leaned in, my lips barely a breath away from her ear. "You forgot whose money you were standing on." Her breath hitched. Her glossy eyes darted to the crowd, realizing the guests were still watching, whispering, judging. And then it hit her. She wasn't the perfect princess anymore. She was the fool standing in the ruins of a wedding she couldn't afford. A nobody in a designer dress. And the moment the press got wind of this, she would be a disgrace. I watched as reality shattered her, piece by piece. Then I turned my back on her, just like they had always done to me. The last plea. I was halfway to the door when I heard my mother's voice. "Evelyn." I stopped. Not because I wanted to. Not because I cared. But because she had never said my name like that before. I turned slowly. She stood there, looking small for the first time in her life. No cold elegance. No air of superiority. Just a woman who had lost everything. "Please," she whispered. "Don't do this." I let the words hang in the air for a long moment. Then I smiled. I already did. And with that, I walked out, leaving the Montgomery Empire in flames behind me. Epilogue. 1 year later. It was exactly 12 months since Olivia's wedding had gone up in smoke. And I had never been better. Sitting in my Manhattan penthouse, I swirled a glass of wine as I scrolled through the headlines. Montgomery Holdings declares bankruptcy. Olivia writes short-lived marriage ends in divorce. Once elite Montgomery family disgraced after scandalous wedding reveal. I took a sip, savoring the moment. They had tried to erase me. They had tried to humiliate me. And now? I was the one who buried them. My phone buzzed. Incoming call, Olivia. I stared at the screen for a moment. Then I turned my phone over, ignoring it. They had no place in my life anymore. I set down my wine, walked to my floor-to-ceiling window, and looked out over the empire I built for myself. For the first time in my life, I was free. Hey, Reddit. It's been a year since I publicly exposed my parents' financial ruin, tore my sister's wedding apart, and walked away from my so-called family for good. I didn't expect the post to blow up the way it did, but judging by the thousands of comments, let's just say I struck a nerve. Some of you were cheering me on, "Love you guys," while others, well, let's just say some of you had thoughts. So, let's address the elephant in the room. To everyone saying, "OMG, how could you do that to your own sister?" How could I? Let's talk about how they did it to me first. Let's talk about how, for years, I was treated like the afterthought of the Montgomery family. How my parents funded Olivia's perfect life, her Ivy League education, her dream vacations, her failed startup that burned through $500,000, while I was left to fend for myself. Let's talk about how my father mocked me when I said I wanted to start my own business. How my mother called me a disappointment because I didn't marry into wealth like Olivia did. Let's talk about how, when I finally made something of myself, they pretended I didn't exist until they needed my money. So no, I don't regret a thing. Because this wasn't about a wedding. This was about years of being treated like I was nothing. And proving that I was so much more. To those who said, "Good thing I don't have a sister like you. Good thing I don't have a family like them." Because real family supports you. Real family celebrates your success instead of pretending it doesn't exist. A real sister wouldn't have handed me a server's uniform for her wedding just to humiliate me. A real mother wouldn't have erased me from family albums. A real father wouldn't have gambled away our legacy and blamed me for leaving. They made me an outsider a long time ago. I just made it official. To the family is everything crowd. Why would you bankrupt your own parents? Oh, sweet summer children. I didn't bankrupt my parents. Olivia did. She was the golden child, the one they spoiled, protected, and invested in. And guess what? She destroyed them. She was given everything, the education, the funding, the opportunities. And she burned through it all. Meanwhile, I built something from nothing. They lost their company. I built an empire. They went bankrupt. I now own a chain of 5-star restaurants and luxury hotels across the US. They taught me that only the strong survive. Well, Mom. Well, Dad. I survived. And I thrived. So, really, thank you. To everyone who supported me. To those who understood why I did what I did. To those who DM'd me saying they had toxic families too. That they saw themselves in my story. Thank you. You reminded me that I'm not alone. That I wasn't crazy for walking away. That we don't owe loyalty to people who only ever tried to break us. I've never been happier. I've never been freer. And if my story taught you anything, let it be this. Never let anyone tell you that you're not enough. Never let anyone erase you. And never, ever let them think you need them, because the day they realize you don't, that's the day you win. Edit. To the people asking if my family ever reached out. Oh, they did. Olivia begged for a job. I sent her my hotel's standard application form. Never heard back. My parents asked for a loan. I offered them a discount at one of my hotels instead. Haven't spoken since. Karma, baby. It's a beautiful thing.